Good afternoon, everyone, and happy, beautiful Friday. We still have some people trickling in, so we're going to get started in just a minute, but we appreciate you joining us today. Today's webinar should be about 35-ish minutes, and we will get started in just a minute. All right, Gigi, did you want to welcome our attendees today?
Yes, it would be my pleasure. So good afternoon, and thank you for joining our Chamber Chat. This is Gigi Godwin. I'm President and CEO of the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. On the webinar, we also have Tricia Swanson, our Vice President of Government Relations. Before we get into specifics, please know that we will email the slides and any other information to you following the webinar today. Pivoting to today's webinar, we know that everyone is focused on the coronavirus and how to navigate this unprecedented time. With this in mind, we thought it would be helpful to give you an update on 3 bills that are moving through the county government that you may or may not be aware of, and that you certainly might have questions about. As always, feel free to ask questions throughout by using the chat box. And by the way, even if your questions aren't related to exactly this presentation, we welcome them. So don't hold back. With that, Tricia, take it away.
Great. Well, thank you, Gigi. Gigi gave a general overview. We're going to be talking about the new-ish public health emergency grant that went live earlier this week, and then we're going to be going over 3 bills at the county council. While we are talking about the public health emergency grant, I thought it would be interesting to see of those of you on the webinar whether or not you applied for it. So you should see a poll pop up on your screen, and you'll see, yes, I applied for it. And then there are a couple of no options. No, I didn't qualify. I didn't know about it, or other. If you have an other, I would encourage you to put it in the chat or the questions. The chambers, both ours and the local chambers, have been talking to our members and finding out how the application process went. And so I would just be curious if you applied, or if you didn't apply, why you didn't. So we're gonna have that up there, and I'm gonna start to talk about it, and I'm gonna close it in about 20 seconds. So the public health emergency grant originally started as $20 million for small businesses, a business under 100 employees located in Montgomery County. Earlier this week, the county council put in an additional $5 million. When it was the $20 million, there was a fourth of that put towards restaurants and retail. The council earlier this week moved an additional $5 million to those industries. So it's $10 million for restaurants and retail. Okay, and it looks like we have a few on here that did apply for it. And some individuals didn't know about it, and it looks like there's an other, which we should definitely talk about, how to prove eligibility for a newly formed business. That was definitely something that we heard from some of our members about. For those of you that did apply, we are curious to hear how the process went. So I have another poll up there. For those that did apply, we heard generally from our members that it wasn't too painless. That it did require kind of a lot of information, and some of the information wasn't necessarily the strongest that they wanted to provide, but I'm just curious to hear about, for those of you that did apply, how the process was. So back to the grant itself, while people are answering that, the legislation allowed businesses to be eligible for grants up to $75,000. What the county executive's office did is the first $10 million of the $25 million grant, businesses can be eligible up to an initial $10,000. So if you do the math there, that should be about 1,000 businesses that will get an immediate need of $10,000. There was also a section, and I'm just looking back at the poll, it looks like people said that the application process wasn't too bad. That's the general response. So interesting. Thank you for filling that out. So if you look on here, there were also you could apply for teleworking expenses of up to $2,500. I've been told that that is in addition to the $10,000. And so even if you haven't applied because you didn't know about it, we'll be sending information following this slideshow. While we know that they've heard from over 3,000 businesses, I would still encourage you to apply because they have that second round that will have the additional $15 million, and we're not quite sure how the county executive's office is going to be rolling that section out. So even if you haven't applied, I would still encourage you to apply now. So now we're going to move to just an overview of 3 bills that are moving through the county council that I thought would be of interest to our members and the business community. The first is a carryout bag tax. The next is a residential rent freeze bill. And then the final one is a bill put in by the county executive for the business advancement team. So we'll start with the carryout bag tax. And again, like Gigi said, please feel free to ask questions throughout if you have comments. We would love to hear from you. So the carryout bag tax, the idea of it was it would have temporarily eliminated that 5-cent bag tax that we have in our county. There were concerns of consumers bringing in their bags from home that might have potentially had coronavirus, or just bringing it into the grocery stores where our frontline grocery workers were handling them. And so this bill was introduced about 2 weeks ago, and we had a few members reach out to us appreciating the concept of it, just that they didn't want people bringing in their bags and then our grocery workers handling them. After working with some of the stakeholders and businesses, Councilmember Jawando decided to withdraw the bill, and Dr. Gales from Montgomery County has been giving advice to people that frontline workers, you can bring in your bags, but frontline workers should not be handling those bags. So I went to Dawson's this morning, I brought my bag and I handled it myself, and therefore didn't have to pay the 5-cent fee. So I thought it'd be good to give a quick update on that one, that the bill has been withdrawn and you still can bring your own bags, but you should be the only one handling those bags. The next one is a big one that we have heard a lot about from our members over the last, I think, week or so. There was a bill put in by Councilmember Jawando that would temporarily freeze any rent increases. And it's good to clarify that that's just residential, not commercial. It went back and forth a few times with the final kind of iteration of it, just including residential. Our chamber had some concerns about the comments that Councilmember Jawando made. We know that our landlords are great community partners and do incredible work, and have been proactively working with their tenants. And Councilmember Jawando made some unfortunate comments, kind of blanketly casting the industry in a negative light. And so I'm sure many of our members saw we sent a letter highlighting the good work that our landlords are doing. Gigi, I don't know if you wanted to chime in on that just before I go into the specifics of the bill.
Yes, happy to. We were particularly concerned about a YouTube chat that that Councilmember Jawando made, and our concern was that I'm sure that he approached the issue in response to concerns raised by somebody someplace. We're just not even sure who that was, but anyhow, somebody someplace said that their rent had been increased. And what we learned when he made this blanket statement that was going to justify, it was his reason for introducing a bill, what we learned from the property owners that we know that are our board members and members and in our community leaders, was that they had done exactly the opposite, that they had proactively and voluntarily reached out to their tenants, both residential and commercial, and said, we know we are in a global pandemic, we know we are in an unprecedented situation, and we're here to work with you. And many of them actually rolled back any increases that had gone into effect automatically. Most leases are built that way, where there are automatic increases over the life of the lease. And instead, they basically dialed them back to zero increase. And then they continue to work on from there. So it's as is often true, every storm cloud has its silver lining. And what we learned is that we had property owners who were proactive, voluntarily working with their tenants to make sure that they could navigate through this, not to mention the work that they're doing with their own staffs and teams to keep their tenants safe by putting extra measures into place. So we felt that it was really important to set the record straight. As the famous Daniel Patrick Moynihan quotation goes, you are welcome to your own opinions, but not your own facts. And his facts were needed to be challenged. And certainly in the spirit of working together, of all times, we need to stand united. And we know that we have made great progress since then. I think we're all back on the same page of working together on behalf of our community. Thanks, Tricia.
Absolutely. So going into the specifics of the bill, I do want to give a shout out to one of our Montgomery County Business Coalition members. Nicola at AOBA has done a fantastic job working on the bill and working on some amendments. We also have some member companies that I won't put on the spot, but they should raise their hand if they want to chime in and talk a little bit about this. I know that we've had some great work done by a lot of our member companies to kind of come up with a compromise on the bill, because I think the intent everyone agrees with, but as many items of legislation, the practical pieces have to make sure they make sense for everyone. So some of the amendments thus far that the chamber is going to be working on after getting some feedback from members. The bill has a current sunset of 120 days, and going back a little bit to the business community that's on the call, when we hear the word sunset, we generally get nervous because there was a sunset promised on a certain energy tax that never happened. And so making sure that this bill has a sunset and a logical sunset of 30 days and that it's actually implemented is incredibly important for this item of legislation. Another big issue that came up that the council is working on and some of the stakeholders are giving feedback on is what is the definition of a state of emergency? The bill as introduced just declares that there can be no rent increases during a state of emergency. It doesn't specify specifically during this coronavirus pandemic. It's just talking about how a public state of emergency. So that could be if we're looking at a hurricane, a snow issue, whenever the governor declares a state of emergency, this bill presumably would go into effect. And so there's been a rightful desire to amend that into more language specifically relating to the situation that we're in. Another issue that was brought up is those tenants that aren't looking at a raise. They should show some kind of hardship qualifier, whether they are laid off or cut back on hours, just having some kind of qualifier for that tenants could provide. And then also making sure the information gets out there, charging DHCA at the county to notify and disseminate information. And I don't know if anyone has any questions about this bill, or if you have any thoughts about it, feel free to reach out. We are working on our testimony now. The bill is has a public hearing next week, and then it's going to be voted on next week. So it's kind of a sense of urgency that our chamber and other partners are moving forward on this. So if you're impacted by this, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I am going to put one of our attendees on the spot here. We are joined by Jerome Fletcher from the County Executive's Office. Jerome, I have just unmuted you. Let me see if I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, fantastic. So as I was putting together this PowerPoint and as I was reading the bill about the business advancement team, I know the county executive had a desire to kind of better structure our economic development office, just because I know when the Department of Economic Development was abolished, they kind of sprinkled different positions throughout the county executive's various agencies. And so this bill appears to kind of restructure that. So Jerome, for those of you that don't know, Jerome has been an incredible ally and friend to the chamber. He is the Assistant Chief Administrative Officer in charge of Economic Development, Business Development. So Jerome, I mean, I could talk about this, but I think since you're kind of in this world, it'd be great to hear your thoughts and feedback on the legislation.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Tricia, and I do appreciate it. And I do love the chamber. I think you guys provide invaluable service to the community. The business advancement team, as you said, is our effort to coordinate better the pieces within the county. One thing that happened, as you said, when the economic development, the DED dissolved within the county, it just put too many people in too many places without a coordinated level of leadership. And this bill will actually allow Tina Benjamin, one of our already pre-existing senior strong members on the executive second floor, to lead this group of individuals. And most of the individuals are already on the second floor, but there's a good group of them that come from finance, and the finance team that is joining this group, who has the economic development experience, are actually the ones who are leading the way with our business solutions group members of Judy Stevenson and Daniel Karoma and the public health emergency grant right now. So this team, even though the bill is not passed, this team is actually in operation, doing a lot of work every day and even on the weekends to make sure that the grant process that we currently are going through is being executed as well as possible. The benefit of this team, I believe, will be twofold, not only internally from our own standpoint so that we can better assist people when they come to county government, but also a better partner to the EDC, the Economic Development Corporation. They have a lot on their shoulders as it relates to the economic development success of the county. And this team should partner not only with their leadership, but Daniel Parra and other pieces that they have in place to make sure that the customer of the county has the best experience. And between the two of us, I would never say that one is better than the other, but my goal is to make sure, regardless of whoever our county residents reach out to, they are given the best customer experience possible.
Fantastic. And then in looking through the legislation, it looks like a new piece of this team, in addition to kind of restructuring and moving people, that they're going to have some oversight and leadership on incubator management, economic development initiatives, financing programs, business development projects, and other business related initiatives. So I thought I would ask, and then I'm going to transition it to Gigi, but I thought I would ask, I'm going to put a poll up there as to how many of you have worked with the current business solutions team that's in place now. I just thought it would be interesting to see kind of what our interactions have been with them as we are transitioning into kind of a new structure. Gigi, did you want to weigh in a little bit?
Yes, thanks, Tricia. And Jerome, thank you so much. And we very much support this effort. We're very happy you have it in place. And our chamber's always worked well with the County Department of Economic Development in all its previous forms. I think that this step moving forward is going to be particularly helpful. And especially as we look at a time which we hope will come at the right time when it's healthy and safe to do it in this post-pandemic era, and we don't know when that's going to be, but we're going to need to do this sort of thing, and we're glad for your leadership here, even more so as we try to bring our economy back online at the right time, in the right way, as everybody is talking about. So, and we are your partners on this, so here we are to help. And thank you again for moving this business advancement team effort forward.
Thank you, Gigi, and I do appreciate it. And I think you and Trish both know that I am grateful for the feedback that you have given me since I've been in this county, to be quite honestly, from day one. Your feedback has been very authentic and very much from the place of making sure that we all do the best to make sure this county is the best. So thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then Jerome, before I let you go, we're going to switch to questions and discussion. There was a question about the public health emergency grant. Do you know how, if a business is, qualifies and gets a grant, do you know how the funds are going to be? Are they deposited into an account, or will they get a check? Have you guys worked on those specifics yet? How the business actually can get the funding?
Yes, ma'am. So we are not doing any paper checks. Once an applicant has been approved and they receive their grant notification letter, if they are already set up as a vendor with the county, then we already have their bank information, and depositing it will be fairly simple. If they are not set up as a vendor already with the county, we will get that process done. It'll take probably 24 to 48 hours. Shouldn't be a long process. We'll get the bank information and then deposit it that way. But we have, we are reviewing applications. There are some that have already qualified for an award, and I think that some grant notification letters will be sent out today.
Fantastic. And then I know, not to again put you on the spot, but as I was talking about it, is it right to those businesses that haven't applied yet that they should still apply? I know that now it looks like we're close to the 5,000s in applications, but is there harm in still applying?
No, I would encourage everyone to apply. The information that we got this morning was we are over, I think, 4,200 applications received, but of the ones that have been reviewed, which is just a couple of hundred at this point, I think 400 are under review, but the ones that have been reviewed already, there is a high rate of applicants who have not provided what was necessary in order to correctly analyze their application. So, there is that process of going back to them and keeping the process going at the same time. So we want to keep it open so that we can get as many applicants as possible. And the last thing I'll say is, you never know what council might come back and appropriate and say, we want to give more money, because this situation and crisis is lasting a lot longer than people originally expected. And as you mentioned, they've already added $5 million to the pot. Who's to say they won't add another $10 million to the pot in a month from now? So please, if you are in need and you want the county to support you, there is no harm in applying, and it could only be to your benefit. Absolutely.
Thank you, Jerome. I don't see any other questions, but we are always available and we're always here. If you have any questions or are running into any, oh wait, we have one question. Jerome, can you talk a little bit about, sorry, I keep putting you on the spot here. Can you talk a little bit about, there were questions about those businesses that haven't necessarily seen a huge windfall yet in March, but looking forward to, and I know the application asked about March, but a lot of our businesses are facing even worse losses as they move through the month of April. And so, providing that information to the county, maybe in another go around, to your point, when hopefully the council appropriates more money. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the difference between March and then an even bigger hit in April as it relates to the application?
Sure. I believe the date of the retail and restaurant closing was April 16th, around, March 16th, around there-ish. So there is a concern that, only half of the month of March is what people were affected by, even though I think the pandemic was classified on March the 5th. So for different industries, it affects people in a different way. So we are getting sort of mixed results in for the month of March, but March is where the identified need actually occurred, and that's where we began with. So right now, here sitting in the middle of April, people normally have their businesses, normally have their financial statements or P&Ls done on a monthly basis, and they will submit for March. And if they have a 50% or more decrease in net revenue, then they would apply and we would go from there. But as that group right there in March sort of gets analyzed and dwindles down, I believe, and a lot of us believe, that the month of April will be another bucket for those to apply to, which is why, ideally we want to keep the process open, for as long as we can, or in all honesty, we may have to reopen it depending on if we close it before the end of April and then people still have losses that they want to reflect for April. So there's nothing that says right now, today on April 15th, that someone cannot submit a P&L through April 15th and include that into their process of what they've lost for. But we do recognize that a lot of people do it on a monthly basis. So those who can do it on a frequency that's less than monthly is great. But I would say, please just stay tuned for information on our website as we partner with County Council to discuss and determine how the second round of disbursements will be issued. It'll be important for us all to just stay flexible as we can try to help as many people as possible.
And are you still deciding, like, if I'm a business and I applied for the March part of it and I got awarded, am I going to need to reapply for April, or how have you guys talked about how that will work?
No, we haven't talked about how it would work yet, but if you've applied for March and you've been awarded, then most likely you'd have to go back in and update your information or add information to your submittal in order for April to be included. What we discussed early on, which I don't believe our DTS staff was able to provide this, was a button that would allow the grant, the grant applicant to go in and then update their information. That may have been a little too much technology for them to handle at this time, as they were trying to stand up the grant process. But overall, we are recognizing that yes, April is going to have its own share of losses. We're trying to make sure that we handle the first round of applicants who are the ones who, hopefully we're addressing those with the most need because they got hit first. If you were in part of that wave of businesses that were seriously affected in the second week of March, then you should be applying and we can get you some attention. And then as the losses increased over the course of time, we will get to more people over the course of that time.
Got it. And switching back to the business advancement team, can you talk about, so we have a new head at MCEDC, Ben Wu, who the chamber has had a long-standing relationship with, and we're very excited about the work that he's done, but that he will do moving forward. Can you talk about kind of how this new team within the county executive's office works with MCEDC and kind of how the two different roles that those two will play with each other?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So part of this group, I think, was mentioned. I think you might have said it. Ruth Semple is our incubator expert at this time, and there's a great synergy that is necessary in order for us to ensure that our local businesses, through our small business development and creation, is in sync and step with EDC. And the executive has a vision that he wants to grow our incubator community so that we can mirror some of the other successful communities. We have three incubators that are under county management, and there's a study out right now, which I'm sure will be impacted by what we're all going through, but there is a study that is occurring right now that is going to help us identify the best path forward to those incubators for how they will be managed. And actually what, should we be managing them? EDC, should they be managing? Should it be a third party? There's all sorts of decisions to make, but whatever is done, we have to do that in a coordinated fashion with EDC. There is room for both of us to operate within the circle of local business development, community development. And even though EDC, when most people think of them, they think about the attraction of the big names or the big businesses, they have a great business retention effort as well. And, again, with Daniel Parra and their local and small business efforts are in alignment with our vision also. So we will definitely have to work together to make it, to make the county the way that we envision it.
Okay, and it sounds like, as people are weighing in on this legislation, that if they have thoughts on what each should be kind of in charge of and how they should work together, that's definitely something that you can provide feedback in your testimony about this particular issue.
Right, absolutely. The goal there is not to duplicate services at all, and we want to create a better, what I would call more fluid relationship between the two organizations. And I have to just say that we all have to remember, EDC is a private organization. They are not a department of the county, so we have to make sure that Ben, Wu, and Bill can operate that company in the best way possible, and then us to align with them without the government trying to control them. We want to be a strong partner with them without bringing off the visual that they do whatever we say. We create a strategic plan with them together. It's voted on by their board, and they share that with us. And of course, council and the executive discusses their funding with them, but they are subject matter experts at economic development, and we have to let them do exactly what they do correctly.
Wonderful. Well, we're at about the 30-minute mark. Gigi, did you want to give any final closing remarks? Thank you so much, Jerome. I apologize for putting you on the spot, but thank you for the value that you added to this.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Well,
you know that. Thank you.
I have to add to that to say thank you, Jerome. I'm so glad you were on the call today. You're a great partner. We're thrilled to be working with you. And I frankly want to thank our other participants for sending in great questions. It was a great discussion. And thank you, Tricia, once again, pulling the information together. And a lot of these things people are just not aware of, but they are going to be affected even the next time they walk into a grocery store. And I want to also remind everybody that, yes, we are going to provide all the Chamber's contact information, all the information that you saw today. We'll send it to our participants today. And remind you that, as always, we are always here to help our members, our community, our government partners, to be sure that you've got access to the best information, the best minds, thought leaders. That is what we do, and it's our mission. So I want you to all make sure that you hold next Friday at noon on your calendars for another Chamber Chat. We are very excited to say that next week we have our incredibly wonderful county lobbyist, Ashley Bagwell. And our topic next Friday is going to be going over the proposed FY21 county budget. And yes, we know that county executive by law was required to submit his budget at the same time, that Monday the 16th, when suddenly we were having to close restaurants and everything else because of the coronavirus. So it was a tough time. It still is. And we know that there's going to be a lot of work that the county executive and the council are doing. So we think next Friday would be a good time for all of us to reconnect and discuss what some of the possibilities are and how we can be helpful to the county executive and the county in moving forward. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to Tricia and thank all of you, as always, for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend. And as always, if you have questions or if we can ever be of assistance, Gigi said this, but we are here to be a resource and to help you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully you can get a little bit of sunshine today and this weekend. Thank you.
Bye-bye.